In this video, we will take a look at a new auto-scale configuration called user-driven auto-scale mode that can now be used with multi-session host pools and really simplify the configuration using the Start VM on Connect functionality that was recently released by Microsoft. This feature is available starting with version 3.2 of Nerdio Manager for Enterprise. So let's jump into workspaces and open up our demo workspace. And let's take a look at a multi-session host pool. So here we have a host pool called HR, and it is a multi-user pooled desktop host pool. Let's go ahead and open up the auto scale configure page. And what we'll take a look at on this page is our scaling logic. So if you'll recall, prior to version 3.2, there were 3 auto-scale algorithms. There's one for CPU usage, one for average active sessions, one for available sessions buffer, and now there is a new user-driven auto-scale mode. Now, the concept behind the user-driven mode is pretty simple. It leverages the Start VM on Connect functionality to power VMs on as users consume all the available sessions. And then after users log off of a particular VM, then the autoscale engine will automatically power off or stop those VMs after a predefined set of minutes. So let's go through this config and take a look at what we have. So we've configured this host pool, let's say with 5 base host pool capacity VMs. So that means there will be 5 VMs pre-created. And we are going to select the autoscale trigger as user-driven. And you can take a look. There is a tooltip that provides some instructions on how it works, but we'll go through the settings right now. We then get to select the delay for the system to use to determine when to scale in or when to shut down the unused hosts once all users have logged off. So this setting, when all users log off, scale in hosts after, and you can set this to 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 2 hours. So that means from the time user sessions are completely removed from the host, 10 minutes later, or within between 10 and 15 minutes or so after that point, in this configuration, autoscale will turn that machine off and stop it. Now, in order to tell the system when it needs to begin powering on additional VMs, we have to configure a per host session limit. If we leave it as default, which is basically unlimited, that means the very first VM is going to be the one absorbing all of those user logins because the limit is so high, and therefore it will never power on any additional VMs. So in our example here, we're using a, let's say we're going to use a 2 or a 4 core VM, and let's say it's 2 users per core. So we can say that our session limit per host is going to be 8 sessions. Again, this is just as an example for our demo right now, because I've chosen a 4 core VM. It obviously could be more users, fewer users, bigger VM, a smaller VM. But for our example, we'll say the session limit per host is 8. And our load balancing algorithm in this case is better off to be depth first. That means it will initially fill up the first host. And then as soon as all 8 users have logged into the first host, as soon as the 9th user goes to log in, the Start VM on Connect feature will automatically turn on the second host. And then the next 8 users will log in. And then once the 17th user goes in, then the 3rd host will come on, etc. So this is our scaling logic configuration using user-driven. Again, very simple. Scale out happens with Start VM on Connect. Scale in happens based on number of minutes after all users have logged off from a host. Now, if you're going to have users who are going to disconnect their sessions, this will prevent the scaling engine from shutting that VM down, even if no one's using the machine. Therefore, it's important when using this scaling mode to configure session limits, session time limits on the host pool properties. So if we open up our host pool configuration, we will be able to go to the properties of that page. So here is our HR pool. We'll go to properties, we'll go to session time limits, and this is where we can enable the duration that a disconnected session will be allowed to exist until it's actually logged off. So be sure to configure session time limits if you're using this particular mode. Now, when scaling in, we can prevent the system from scaling in during certain times of day. So for instance, we may want to say, do not scale in even if there are empty hosts until it's after 6 p.m. And we also have the ability to configure drain mode on all of the hosts after 6 p.m. comes around, with the exception of the minimum active host capacity. If you'll recall, the minimum active host capacity tells the system how many of the base capacity VMs must be up and running 24/7, which means that even though this setting is configured to remove or scale in hosts after they've been empty for 10 minutes, the system will make sure to honor this condition of having at least one active one. And as a result, we can configure an option to deactivate all available hosts other than the one active one. And the system will choose the one with the most current sessions. And the reason for that is because during off hours, when scaling is allowed, meaning machines can be shut down, you want any new sessions that are coming in to be coming into a single VM rather than being distributed across other available VMs, because that will prevent scaling from removing those VMs and stopping them or shutting them down or deleting them. So this is our new user-driven mode for multi-session host pools. Just as a reminder, the same concept works with single user personal desktops. As we showed in a previous video, if we go to auto scale configure, same kind of concept here. If we select a user-driven mode, desktops will be started when users connect, and desktops are stopped when users log off, again, after a predefined number of minutes. So again, super simple and powerful way to match precisely the amount of available capacity to the users who need their machines at certain times, without having it running idly without anyone connected. The one thing to keep in mind with Start VM and Connect is that that user who triggers the VM start is going to wait somewhere about 5 minutes before the machine becomes available for their session to be connected. So as long as you as the administrator and the users are okay with tolerating a few minutes of a delay on certain conditions when those VMs are just starting, then this is a good auto scaling mode to consider to get a really precise way of matching capacity with demand. Hope you found this useful, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.